So thanks for inviting me to have a chat about ITAKOM this morning. I know we're getting closer and closer to the conference.
Very exciting.
Yes. So we've got that conference title, It Takes All Kinds of Minds. And I wondered if you could just tell me a bit more about, what does that title mean? What's it supposed to stand for?
Yeah, I think what It Takes All Kinds of Minds stands for is collaboration, cooperation, bringing people together to generate a kind of shared insight into neurodiversity and how we might use that idea. So I think we need to push back against the idea that there is a particular group who is in charge of neurodiversity, who get to call the shots and say, this is what it is, this is what we're going to do with it, whether that's university academics or autistic people or any other specific group. So It Takes All Kinds of Minds is about that shared perspective and kind of co-production of knowledge and conversations about neurodiversity.
I like that. And every time I read the title, my brain fills in a bit at the end. It takes all kinds of minds to what? What are we doing?
Yeah.
So, do you have an answer for that? What are we doing working together?
Yeah, so I think what we need to do is take this idea and start to build on it and think about what it means in a more practical sense, right? Mm-hmm. What are we doing in schools, in workplaces, in health and social care settings, and in our communities more generally that's informed by neurodiversity? So that's an activity that is going to take all kinds of minds. And it's about moving beyond the idea and the principles and towards a sense of action and change in our society.
So as you've been answering those questions, you've mentioned lots of different settings, lots of different possible groups of people. So for ITAKOM as an event, who do you see as the main audience?
I think this is hard because it would be tempting to design a conference for one specific audience and just really tailor it for them. And we've explicitly tried to do the opposite and make ITAKOM relevant to a really broad range of people. And that's because we want those diverse perspectives to be part of the conversation. I think if there's something that unites all of the people coming to the conference, it's a desire to learn more about neurodiversity and to improve what they're doing in their career, their research, their practice, to make the world a better place for a group of people who are often disadvantaged within our current systems.
So telling me generally about the conference, you've mentioned lots of possible groups of stakeholders who are bringing something to the table here. Mm-hmm. And I'm already thinking ahead to my talk, because you kindly invited me to speak.
Of course I did.
And sort of thinking, as an academic researcher, what's my role in a conference like this? What are academic researchers bringing to the table?
Yeah. So I think one of the things we're calling for here is a certain amount of change in how things are done on the ground, as it were. And a big part then of that change has got to be building an evidence base. I'm a big believer in evidence-based practice. That's why I do the job that I do. Mm-hmm. And so I think we need to have academics as part of that process, creating the evidence base to support changes in practice and maybe also the kind of bigger changes in policy as well.
Okay, so focusing on evidence, focusing on using evidence to create change.
Exactly.
Okay, I think that's a good brief to take into preparing for the conference.
Great.
Something else I've been wanting to ask you for a while is, I've sort of seen from the outside, you've been putting in a lot of hours on this, probably for at least a year already. What is your personal goal in helping to organize this conference?
Yeah, it has been a lot of work, but it's an exciting thing to do. I want to make sure that the idea of neurodiversity becomes part of our public conversation and that in doing that, we don't leave anyone behind or leave anyone out of that conversation. So when I start talking about things in terms of neurodiversity at the moment, I can't be sure that your idea of what I mean is the same as mine. I can't be sure that all the audience I'm trying to reach genuinely feel included within that idea. And so that's one of the things I really want to change by having a kind of big event explicitly focused around neurodiversity.
So last question about the big event. I'm sure that you see also that there's conferences and webinars, professional development, more and more stuff being advertised all the time. What would you say to people if they're trying to choose whether to attend ITAKOM or not? Spend their time and their money to come to this event versus something else.
Yeah. I think that the reason to come to this conference as opposed to any other is because I think this conference will be both hopeful and practical. So I want people to come and rather than exclusively analysing the problems with the system as it stands, I think there are many and many of us very well aware of those, we should be thinking about the future. What's it going to look like when it changes? How are we going to get there together? And I hope that people will leave the conference, and we've certainly invited speakers who are going to facilitate this, will leave the conference with new practical ideas of things that they can actually do. I'm going to try that at work. I'm going to try that in my classroom. So that's what I think is really the unique reason to come to our conference.
I like that orientation toward action. I think that's really positive.
Thanks. I like it too.
Well, thanks for making time to have a chat today.
Thank you, Alyssa. Great questions.